G'day punters, welcome to a new series, Renovate, Rejuvenate and Renew. All about Landcruiser, 250,000 Ks down the track, time for some loving. Hope you enjoy the episodes following. Some years ago I upgraded the brakes on this. I'm not talking about the booster, I did that about the same time. But I upgraded the rotors, and you might see just in there, they're Delios. That's a Delios rotor on the front there, and they've remained there since that upgrade. I also did pads and braided brake lines at the same time. I've replaced the rear rotors a few times. It's part of what's going to occur in a couple of weeks. I decided to renew all the brakes. So these all came from Marks. They're Delios rotors, front, rear ones. This is a new pad that they were talking to me about. They've developed with Bendix. It's an extreme performance one. I think it's a ceramic one. And I'm going to replace the brake lines. New brake lines, braided. But I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to do the 4 lines to the calipers, not the other ones. So I'll keep the others as spares. I've also got some handbrake shoes, which I forgot to mention. These rotors are paired, so you can't swap sides. So there's a left one and a right one. Thankfully they mark it left, right, right, left. So you've got to be aware of that, particularly when you're ordering rotors. Some rotors, like the DBA rotors, are interchangeable from side to side. These Delios ones aren't. Probably haven't told you the story about these brake shoes, other than telling you that I purchased them in Adelaide. These aren't genuine Toyota ones. When I was down there, I went to a bunch of Toyota places to try and get some handbrake shoes. They sell them separately, like one shoe, not in a pair, and they're about 60 or 70 bucks each. So 250 bucks for a full set. I went to a brake specialist place and I bought those for about 80 bucks. The complete set. Getting prepped to do all these brakes today. Some brake clean as well. Jack stands over there. Yeah, doing a bit of cooking on the oven at the moment, doing a brisket and some ribs. Got some coals here. Different story, now there'll be a video about that if you're interested in what I'm doing there. Yeah, so the boss is out at the moment with the car. She'll probably be back about, I reckon, 10 o'clock. It's about 8:30 now. I'm sort of banking that it'll take me 4 hours to do all the jobs. That's the rotors, pads, brake lines, handbrake shoes. Cruiser's back from its morning shop. Popped the lid on the handbrake master cylinder, wrap the rag around it. Jacked it up, put it up in jack stands. Got time-lapse video happening at the moment, so I'll even bring you back if there's something interesting. That's something interesting. This is the socket that was given to me by Jack's tyres that come with the rims and the tyres that I bought recently. To say that the right front nuts weren't tight would be a misleading statement, it'd be a lie. It was bloody hard. In fact, I had to use a breaker bar, my longest breaker bar, and an extension with a ring open ender just to crack the nuts. It goes in for a 5,000 K service. I'll have a chat to the local people and ask them if they torque it up or if they just use their 2-inch rattle gun, because that's what it felt like. Well, some of that time-lapse video you would have seen would have seen I've been having a bit of problems trying to get the handbrake shoes on. These little clips, retaining clips, there's a pin with a flat end that goes through those. It won't locate, it just pops out both ways, and this one's chewed up, as you can see. That's a real bugger. So it's about to ring Toyota and see if we get some spare parts. Still waiting for some parts. Toyota didn't have any here in Bundaberg, but they've got a couple of thousand down in Brisbane, which doesn't help me. Got this handbrake side on, yeah, a bit of work. I've got some old wheel nuts in there just to hold the disc and the rotor up nice and firm. It's just so I can adjust the handbrake. I find that if you adjust it without securing the rotor, it wobbles a bit. So you mightn't get a very good adjustment. So just to hold down the bottom there, flathead screwdriver. I've done a video on this previously, so if you want to know how to adjust the handbrakes, go back and have a look at that, eh? You'll be thinking that we've skipped ahead a few days. It's Monday. The last time I took some video on this was Thursday evening. Had the back brakes off. Finished the back brakes. Probably would have seen that on the time-lapse video. Front brakes, yeah, I've got the front up again. Got the calipers off. And I'm about to pull a manual locker off as well, just a tip. Take that off before you jack it up on jack stands, because it's not impossible to do, just a little bit more difficult. 14 mils. Real pain in the arse thing is that the rotors are mounted up to the hub, and the mounting bolts are accessible from the inside. So the hub has to come off. For the hub to come off, the locker has to come off. Now, you'll see that in the time-lapse video. My front left disc's off, to show you. You take the outer hub lock off first, then the inner one, just held on by a circlip. Then you've got the adjusting nut for the wheel bearing, a lock washer. One tab's bent on the towards the inside to lock the adjusting nut, and one tab's bent back out to lock the locking nut. I'll see the bearing race there. These are the bolts that hold the rotor on. I'm not going to do anything with the bearings or seals. I'll probably just cover that up a bit, try and protect any dirt and shit getting in there. My little rattle gun's not going to get those bolts undone. Instead of trying to fight the disc, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the rotor back into the hub, do up a couple of wheel nuts so it's locked in position, and then I'm going to try and undo the nuts again. I'll come back to you then. Alright, I put 2 wheel nuts in so that disc ain't going to move anywhere. Got a breaker bar this time. I'll see how we go. The seal surface is in there, this outside ring. Just going to put a little bit of grease on that, and just a little bit of grease around the seal. I'll put a little bit of grease on that bearing surface, and I'll stick the rotor on. This outer nut, I haven't done it up very tight yet. I've done it up firm against that lock washer. What I want to do is I'm just going to bend that tab there back in towards the diff, so it's locked over the adjusting nut. So when I do this lock nut up, hopefully the adjusting nut won't move. There's a tension or torque for these nuts too. I think it's about 45 foot-pound. Socket, you can buy those. They're a hub nut socket. It's 54 millimeters for Landcruiser. That's a 1/2 inch drive. You can buy 3/8 inch drive ones as well. Half inch are probably better. It's better than using a hammer and a pin punch. A lot easier. Just take up a bit more room in your toolkit. Not sure if you'll be able to see that. That inside tab's bent over now, and this outside one's bent over the lock nut. So now to put the hubs back on. Axle, it can move in and out, so make sure you pull it all the way out, otherwise you won't get the circlip on. I've put the 10mm bolts in there to pull the axle out to help me get that circlip located. Both rotors are on now. This is the driver's side. Just thought I'd show you what I do with the calipers. There's a bunch of ways that you can compress the pistons back in. What do we need to do that? New pads, new discs. I just use, well, not even G-clamps, slider clamps. Just need to make sure you don't push them all the way in. Otherwise you might crush up the seals around the pistons. Also keep an eye on your master cylinder, make sure it doesn't overflow. Doesn't hurt to check your old pads against the new pads to make sure you got the right ones. These pads have these little springs there, both sides. They're actually wear indicators. What happens is when the pads wear down, they'll start rubbing up against the disc, making a squealy sound. So you need to change your pads. So these have got one on each pad. So you should make sure it's the same on the new pads. And it is. You can change the pads without having the caliper off, so that's all mounted up nice and tight now. These pads just slide in. Just like that. There's these mounting pins there. It goes through the caliper and the pad. So make sure you line them up. Probably help with a little bit of silicone grease on them too, not that they really need it. And do the bottom one. There's a retaining spring here that goes around the bottom pin and it clips over the top. So that's that spring mounted through that top pin into the little hole there and into the bottom spring. Just stick that on too. There we go. Brake line replacement. So that's the flexible line that I'm going to replace. You can see it's just a little bit broken down there. 10mm fitting on the back of here. Undo that first. There's a little clip on the back of here. You just use a screwdriver. You can just see it popping up, I think. That clips into a recess in the back of the brake hose, and I'll show you that. That's the new hose there. The little clip fits in there, I'll show you. That's the clip there. That slides in there. Two new couple washers. 14mm fitting down here. Got to be reasonably quick, otherwise I'm going to use all my brake fluid. And you can see the pipe there, it's leaking a bit at the moment. The caliper under the brake line has these little roll pins. It actually locates in the caliper, so make sure you line that up properly. Nip that up pretty well. Make sure you get the old washers off too. Sometimes they sort of weld on a little bit, either to the caliper or to the nut. I've got both washers there. So what I usually do is I feed the hose through there to start off with. Get that fixed line started first, otherwise if you stick it in it becomes a pain in the ass to try and get the fixed line started into this flexible line. Once I've got it started, these are oblong sort of shaped. You see that flat side there and that flat side there. And there's a sort of a lip there. That'll sit inside that bracket. It'll only fit in one way. Well, it'll fit in two ways, but once it's fitted this way, like onto your caliper, it'll only fit in one way and locate properly. So you need to push that all the way in and make sure that that part of the brake line is nice and flush against the back of that mounting bracket. That's that line fitted off now. If you've got pipe spanners, you probably should use those. I don't, so just ring open ender on that. Because there's brake fluid in there and it's hydroscopic, in other words it tracks and sucks up water, it's probably a good idea to give it a good wash as soon as you can. At the moment what I need to do is I need to bleed these brakes out. Got some new rubber boots for these nipples too yesterday. The old ones were perished and some were missing, and one bleed nipple was actually blocked up. I'm just going to do a gravity feed. Done some videos on this previously. So if you want to know more about that, it's one of my first videos with the iPhone. It's bleeding brakes for dummies. I think there's 3 parts to it. Always start from the furthest brake component from the master cylinder as possible. You can see it's leaking there now. Toe them up. Rubber boot on. Driver side, stripping as well. Do them up. Rubber boot on. What I'm going to do now is give this a hose down. Probably third to last thing. Top up the brake master cylinder. Used all of the brake fluid I had the other day. This one's yellow. .3 for this vehicle. Once I get up to the maximum line, I'm going to go pump the pedals a few times because those pistons and the calipers, the front calipers, have been compressed, as you know. So I need to expand them out back into their running position. So it's right at the max line there. It's coming solid again. Nice and solid. See, it's dropped down a bit. So top them up again. Apart from putting the wheels back on, the only thing I want to do is take a little bit of a test drive around the block to make sure the brake's working okay, and recheck the brake master cylinder level. And that's the end of this video. All about replacing brake pads, braided brake lines to the calipers, rotors, rear handbrake shoes. Cheers.